Okay, so this week we're still talking about statistics, but we're going to start talking about looking at data graphically because, as the saying goes, a picture says 1,000 words, and this is pretty true. A lot of times you want to see a picture of the data rather than just a bunch of numbers. It makes more sense. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a stem and leaf plot. So these aren't necessarily, they're not the most common kind of graph. They're just kind of neat, especially if you have something where the data is not a giant data set and it's not spaced out, like you're not having numbers from 0 to 5 million. So like for things like grades and that sort of thing, this is actually pretty handy. So okay, let's say you have some grades. Okay, so let's say you decided to become a silly thing like a teacher, and you have all these grades and you kind of want to see how things are distributed. But you don't want to do like a bar graph or just a regular chart with all the dots and you connect it with a line. We want to kind of look and see how things are grouped. One option is this stem and leaf plot. So the way this is set up is I draw a vertical line. And notice I have some 40s, and it helps to put all this in order before you do it. So I have some 40s, I have some 50s, some 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and then 100. So I'm going to take the first digit, or in the case of the hundreds, I'm going to take the first two digits. I'm going to put those to the side. So I have some 40s, I have some 50s, some 60s, some 70s, some 80s, some 90s, and some hundreds. Ta-da. Okay, so each of this digit right here, or in this case this, that's on the left-hand side of this vertical line. On the right-hand side, we're going to take the actual grade. So like 40, I'm going to take that 0, I'm going to put it right here. For the 50s, I had a 52 and a 56, so I'm going to put a 2 and a 6. For the 60s, I had a 60 and I had a 4. 70s, I had 3 70s, so 0, 0, 0. I had a 1, a 2, and a 5. 1, 2, 5. For the 80s, I had a 0, a 2, 3 4s, so 1, 2, 3, a 7, and an 89. And then for the 90s, I had a 92, I had a 93, a 97, and I had 2 100s, so the last digit on those is just a 0. So, okay, so if we look at this, we move this slightly up because sometimes I write too big. Da-da-da. So then a lot of times there'll be a key, and it says key 4/1. Okay, that's easy. 4/2 is 42, right? So whatever's on the left, that's the first part of your number. Whatever's on the right, that's your second part of the number. And if we look at this, it makes the data kind of stand out. And we can go, okay, well, wait a second. We had, let me make this a bright color. I had 3 70s, right? I had 3 84s. So later on we're going to talk about mode. The mode is the one that occurred the most. So in this case it was a tie, right? We had 3 70s and we had 3 84s. But we could find that. We can see that there are more, like the vast majority of the data is right here. Everything else is just kind of around it. So we kind of see kind of how it's like distributed. So that's a stem and leaf plot. So basically you take your list of numbers. The last digit goes over to the right side. And the first digit or the first two digits go over here. And so you divide it up like that. So let me make another little real simple one. So let's say, well, soccer scores are easy. It's either 0, 1, or 2. But let's say you had a basketball score. So those are bigger. Let's say one game there was they did horribly. They got a 32. Then let's say they got a 57 one game. They got a 58 one game. They're getting better. They got a 72. They got an 80. They got a 93, a 94, a 95, and then a 102, and a 125. Now let's just leave it at that. Okay, so if I want to do my little stem and leaf, I would do my little line. My first numbers, I have a 3 for 32. I have a 5. I have 2 of those. I have a 7. I have an 8, a 9, and a 10. And then my numbers on the right-hand side, my little leaves, on the 3, I have a 32. For the 5, I have a 57 and a 58. I have a 72. I have an 80. Then I have a 93, a 94, a 95, and I have a 102. So now I can see that, you know, my basketball games are getting a little bit better, and now see I have more in the 90s category than I have in the other categories individually. So yeah, so that's our stem and leaf chart. So our stem and leaf plot. We just take the first numbers, we put it over here, take the ones place, we put it right there, and we can see our data. Hooray!